This is Kat Chancellor with Stamp Art Connection and StampArtConnection.com. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and this afternoon I wanted to demonstrate a couple of ways that you can use the Lasting Lily photopolymer stamp set from the Celebrations, and on 1 March these framelets will be available that coordinate with this stamp set that you can get from Celebrations with a $100 purchase, and how great these framelets work with the stamps. What we're going to do is we're going to create this card, and I believe that this card was featured on, and let me see if I can find it. It was featured in the Celebrations catalog, and you have to go all the way to the back or just flip the back page and turn it over, and you can see that this design right here was featured on page 18. So I'm using this design here to create this card. I'm going to change it up a little bit, but it's basically the same idea, and I'm going to give you all the tips and tricks. Okay, so let's get started. What you're going to need to create this card, first off, is you're going to need the Lasting Lily stamp set and the framelets, and I'm going to be using the Strong and Beautiful Cling stamp set. I'm going to use one of the sentiments. You're also going to need the layering on the stitch shaped framelit dies to cut out several of our sentiment and our circle, and you're going to need this wonderful linen thread to wrap around our card. I'm using Pear Pizzazz paper, and if you're tracking on my blog, I believe I already demonstrated how to make a easel card, because that's what this card is going to be. It's going to be a beautiful easel card. So you can open it up, and then we're going to have simply that piece there. So to make our easel card, Pear Pizzazz, and this is using my very handy Fancy Folds PDF 11 by 4 1/4, and then we're going to go ahead and score at 5 1/2 and 8 and 1/4, and this is where we're going to, this area right here is where we're going to paste our other piece on. So this is our base card. You're going to need a pair of the Daffodil Delight gingham, and this is going to be at 5 1/4 by 4, because we want this to be centered nicely and have this very nice frame. We're going to cut a circle, so you're going to need a piece of Whisper White cardstock that is going to go behind this piece, and I have this one cut at 5 3 3/4, and that's going to be the base for that piece. The inks that I'm using is, the first step that we're going to stamp with is we're going to stamp with Petal Pink, and then I'm going to use Calypso Coral, because the way we're going to get this effect is we're going to do a sponging effect around the edge. And lastly, our Old Olive is going to be used to stamp our stems and our leaves. Okay, so I also have a couple of these wonderful little Happiness Blooms enamel dots, because they have some wonderful Calypso Coral, which I kind of use from the inside. You'll notice that this shape right here is a brand new punch that will also be available on 1 March for purchase under the Occasions Catalog Celebrations new product release. Okay, so I got the paper, I have the framelets, I have the stamps, and I have the inks. I think I've covered everything. The one other piece I want to add is I've used this Calypso Coral Stampin' Up! Watercolor pencil, because when you're stamping with this very light color and then you're using this darker color to create some dimension with the sponging, sometimes you lose some of the detail. So I kind of use this pencil to kind of pencil in a little bit of the detail, and with that I have a blender pen, and I'll kind of show you how we're going to do that. Okay, so putting aside everything, let's go ahead and start our stamping. Now I want to first show you a couple of examples here of stamping with these really nice, they're called distinctive stamps. One of the things that you need when you're stamping with distinctive stamps is you have to make sure that when you put them on your block, I like to kind of peel them on. I just kind of make sure that they kind of peel all the way on, and I don't have any air pockets, because the air pockets will make a difference when you're stamping with your ink. So I just don't plop them on, I more or less peel them on my block. The next thing you want to ensure that when you're stamping, and in this case we're going to use our Petal Pink, is that with our Petal Pink, I'm going to get, and here, this is simply a letter opener. I'm going to make sure that my pad is pretty dry. I don't want a very, very moist pad. A moist pad is going to, you're going to lose a lot of the detail with your Petal Pink distinctive stamp. So let me give you an example how I'm just using very lightly. I'm going to kind of kiss that pad and then stamp. So it's a little bit better. Much better. You can see it's much prettier, and that's how I'm going to stamp my petals. And I'm going to show you some more examples that I did right here. Again, I just want to make sure that my ink pad is rather dry. I do not want it moist. And I'm going to kind of just kiss my pad, kiss my stamp on the pad. I don't want it to have a lot of ink on it, but I want to make sure I do have ink. And then using my piercing mat, there, that's much better. So I'm going to kind of lay my stamp down, kind of kiss it, and then I actually kind of rolled my my stamp, kind of starting at the top. Okay, I kind of rolled my stamp and I kind of watched the ink, and then I did the same thing here. I kind of rolled it onto my paper. Okay, let's do that again with this one. Again, I'm taking the tip and I'm going to kind of just roll it on my ink pad, and then I'm going to kind of roll it on my paper. And if it gets too blotchy like that, all I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my tool here, and I'm just going to kind of move that ink over. And I'm going to do the same thing, just kind of roll it. And I'm going to kind of roll it. And I get a very nice, distinctive, image. I kind of don't like that there, so let's do that again. Just roll it gently. Oh, much nicer if you can see that. So it takes a little bit of practice to kind of make sure you have kind of the right touch. But I did find that rather than just taking the stamp and then just stamping it like this, I found just kind of rolling it and watching it kind of kiss the paper was I got the best results. Also, making sure that I kind of move the ink out of the way. Because the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a piece of Whisper White, and this is a good piece, and I'm going to grab my my other pieces, and I'm going to use, these are my stems, I'm going to use this block right here. Now, because you have framelits and you have a photopolymer stamp that can basically take any shape, you have to be very careful to ensure that the shape that you're going to stamp is going to fit your framelit. The way that I found to make this easy is I basically just took my stamp and I fit it inside my framelit. Okay, I'm just slipping it right underneath. All right. And then I'm going to lay it down on my block. And there it is. I'm going to pull my my framelit off. And I'm going to do the same for my next shape. Just kind of laying the top of my, looking at my stamp. This is the top right here. And I'm just going to lay this like this with the ridge side of your framelit up into your framelit like that. And then I'll probably turn this way, and I'm going to put that one there. And there, it fits perfectly on my framelit, so I'm going to lift my framelit up. And lastly is this beautiful little leaf. I'm going to grab this leaf. And I had heard about this from some other demonstrators. I don't know if they came up with the same solution, but upon thinking about it after I played with the set a little bit, this is the solution I came up with to make sure that you're getting the shape that's going to fit your framelit. Okay? All right, so now I'm using Old Olive, and I'm going to do the same thing with the Old Olive. I'm just going to move some of this ink to the side of my ink pad, okay? And it's a nice juicy ink pad. It seems that the newer ink pads do better, but this is what I'm using for this particular stamp set. And since I've got a couple of stamps on here, I'm just kind of blotting it. These might come out a little bit more. And again, I'm just going to do that same thing. I'm just going to they're a little dark, and I'm really not going to get too excited about that, because I think the beauty is more in the flower than in the stems. But you know, you're always free to just kind of wipe that way. And let's put ink on there. Turn this around. And let's get ink on there. And then let's do the very same thing. Okay, you can kind of see a difference in this leaf right here compared to that leaf, because instead of putting my block this way, where I had moved the ink to this side, I kind of did it this side and this side so that I made sure I took advantage of the drier portion of the ink pad. I think that's much, much better. Very pretty. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and grab our Big Shot, and we're going to cut out our flowers. We're also going to grab our, let me grab my framelits. So we're going to need our framelits here to cut out our stems and our leaf. And then we're going to need these framelits to cut out our lilies right there. The next thing we're going to use is we're going to use in our stitched framelits, and you can use your circle, your layering circle dies, it doesn't matter. I'm just kind of have these at my desk. I'm going to use the largest circle, and we're going to go ahead and cut that right there. And it actually is kind of nice because then you get this other nice piece with the stitched edging on it that you can always use for another card. So we're going to need that, and you're going to also use your layering circle, which is going to be this one here, and you're going to cut 2 pieces. And if we look at our sample card over here, we're going to stamp on this piece, and then on the inside we're just simply going to use a much larger piece, and we're going to cut this out of Pear Pizzazz as a base for a sentiment inside. So that would be this piece here. So we want, we're going to stamp in white, and then I'm going to cut this one out in Pear Pizzazz. So let's grab a piece of, another piece of white cardstock. Let's just put all these pieces that I'm going to take over to the Big Shot. And let me bring this piece back. And the sentiment that I want to use is, oh, I think I already have it on a block. It's from The Strong and Beautiful, and it says here, to the woman who does all with grace and wisdom. So I'm going to use my Calypso Coral, and we're just simply going to ink this up nicely and stamp right there. I think that looks nice. That's a cleaner image, so I'm going to go with that second one right there. And then on the inside, we're going to say, let's stamp the inside, to the woman who does all with grace and wisdom. I'm going to take this little one here that says, you are loved completely. Now these are the cling stamps, and I haven't put the backing on. I'm just going to take this piece and I'm going to save it, because when I do put the backing on this cling stamp, I want to make sure that I have that to kind of protect my stamp. Let me just find the right. Okay, so then this is what I'm going to use. Right. Oops, upside down. Up, so you don't have. If I don't have my cling on, I don't see it. But hey, it looks wonderful. So I'm just going to leave it and call that good. I have all my pieces and parts that I'm going to now go over to the Big Shot. I'm going to cut everything out, and then we're going to come back and begin to assemble our card. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back. I just wanted to show you that that one piece that we said you are loved, it came off a little crooked, so I just turned it over and I've picked another stamp, and it's you're amazing, and that's a fact. So This is going to go on the outside. To the woman who does it all with grace and wisdom, you're amazing, and that's a fact. I think that's really nice. But I also wanted to show you that this sentiment also fits nicely on this other new punch, that it will be available 1 March. So this is actually kind of a good tool to have. So we're going to put those aside. Here are all my little stems and pieces, and you can see how nicely they all cut out perfectly on the framelits. So there is your tip for how to make sure that your framelits fit your stamps for all these little stems and pieces. So we're going to put those right here. I also have this piece here that I cut out using our layering ovals, and what we're going to do is we're going to put that piece right there. So that's really nice. But we could also, if we wanted to put something on the front like that, you could change it up. So there's some layering options that you have with that. So I'm going to put my layering oval away. Then over here, here's our piece of our gingham, and I'm just going to go ahead and pull out this circle. Again, you have a nice circle that you can put aside and use for another card. So I'm just going to set that there and put my layering circle away. So I have everything I need now to assemble my card. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that aside. Now what I want to do is this is what my card front is going to look like. But I want to go ahead and take the 3 flowers that I'm going to use here, and I'm going to grab a sponge dauber and some Calypso coral. I'm just going to grab my flower, and let's start with the smaller one first. Oops. I'm going to grab my sponge dauber, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to very lightly just kind of sponge along the edge of my flower. Now remember, this is Petal Pink, and I'm sponging in Calypso Coral. So it just kind of gives it a nice look. And I kind of like sponging kind of on the bottom. So that's a very, very subtle look. Again, I'm going to take my other one. Let's put a little bit of ink. Start at the bottom when your sponge dauber has the most ink in it, because as you work your way up the flower, you kind of don't want as much strong color. Maybe at the tip we might be able to put a little bit more of color, but we kind of want the strong color to start at the bottom and then work your way up around the flower, kind of like that. And they don't have to be exact. They can be kind of a little bit different. In fact, the one that's going to go behind my flower, I might want to put a little bit more, a little darker, a little bit more shadow there. Okay. And then we're finally going to take this nice big piece, and again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start with my sponge daubing right at the bottom, kind of, work it up, kind of start at the bottom and work my way up. It's okay maybe to get some of that on the tip. So I get ink, and then I kind of put the ink on the bottom, and then the next couple of swipes are around the top. Now I'm just going to kind of rub that a little bit. Let me kind of maybe blend it a bit. I kind of like the idea of having the color at the bottom. Okay, so there's our lilies, and you can very barely, and I'm going to bring in my camera here, so you can very barely see the very light shadow or image. This is where I'm going to take my my Calypso coral pencil, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to kind of just draw that in just a little bit, just following those lines. And I'm going to kind of take my pencil, and maybe I'm going to add a little bit of color right there. Okay, so now I can kind of see that a little bit clearer. I'm going to do the same thing with this one here. I'm going to grab these lines and bring them down. This is kind of where that piece of the flower is, right down here. I'm going to kind of draw that in a little bit. Okay, and we'll do the same here. I can barely see that, but I can see it's right there. So this kind of helps to kind of just give our flower a little bit more dimension. And then I'm going to grab my blending tool, and then very lightly with my blending tool, I just want to make sure I'm just going to go ahead and it's just going to blend that color. See that? I just kind of blended. Just kind of blend that color in. Just going to kind of soften it so it's not so hard an edge. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing with this one. Just kind of take my blending tool, pick up some of that color, soften it a little bit, and then the same with this one. Just kind of softens that edge right there. Okay. And I'm just going to clean my blending tool off. Blender pen. And there we go. There you go. Isn't that gorgeous? Now, I'm going to leave these the way they are. But you could do the same thing. And in fact, what I have done with these is if I didn't like that there was too much white, I just simply trimmed some of that white down. Alright, so now I have all my little pieces and parts. Aren't those pretty? Those look so nice. Isn't that a nice effect? And I used my Calypso coral pencil. Alright, so let's put all that away and let's put our card together. The first thing I do when I'm putting this card together is I'm going to get a piece of tear tape. And I'm going to put tear tape right over here. And if you hear some snoring, it's Rocky the pug is dozing away happily on my futon after an exciting morning of chasing other dogs. Okay, I'm taking this off, and all I want to do is I want to just kind of center that right there. Okay. Now, having done that, I can still lift this bottom. So this is where I'm going to arrange my lilies, and I'm going to kind of arrange them like that. Now, we're going to start with this lily here. So I'm going to take these lilies aside, and this is the lily that is going to go directly onto the paper. And I will tell you that the best way to put these things down are glue dots. So I'm just going to put a couple of glue dots here on my lily, and I'm going to, and I do like to look at my example. I'm going to put this lily right over here. Okay. And then I'm going to take one of the stalks, which is this stalk here, and this stalk is going to go right under that lily, but I'm going to trim this down a little bit because I really don't want it to stick out too much. So that's really about enough. So again, I'm going to use a glue dot. I'm putting my glue dot right on the top, and I'm just going to lay this right under my lily right there, and that's going to stick nicely underneath. Okay, the next piece I'm going to put is, we're going to put this piece, and this lily is going to go right here, and I'm going to use the same plain stalk. Let's see. Just going to move that. I'm going to put the same plain stalk right there underneath this flower. And again, I'm going to use my glue dots. Okay. But this lily, I'm going to stick this in here, is going to go popped up. So we're going to pop this one up with dimensionals. And the very big dimensionals work very well on this. And I also use a dimensional right there at the, between where the glue dot is and where the stem comes in. And I'm just gonna kind of take that off. And I'm going to put this one right here. And this one goes kind of a little bit of overlapping right there. It's okay if it overlaps, because then this one, which is going to have a glue dot here on the top of this one, is going to go off over on this side. And this is where we're going to put our sentiment. But we're going to pop this one up as well. So we're going to use a couple of the large dimensionals. Again, I'm going to put a dimensional right there on top of where the stem and the flower meet. And I want to put a little dimensional, so I have my little mini dimensionals. I'm going to put a little mini dimensional right at the very tip, right there. Okay, and I might put another little mini dimensional right in the middle. If I can, if it'll get off my nail. And maybe a little mini dimensional right here on my leaf. And that's really about all I need. So let's go ahead and take this, pull off all our back pieces here. And now I'm going to stick that one, and that one is going to go like right there, and it's going to take up that space very, very nicely. So it's meant to kind of have a little bit of offset. You'll notice I've got some stems peeking out the bottom, but we'll take care of that. Now I want to add a leaf. And I'm simply just going to take this leaf right here, and it's going to go right there. And I'm going to pop this up on dimensionals as well. And I'm just sticking the mini dimensional right up there. So we're going to just put this leaf, it's going to go right about there. So now we have some extra pieces that we're just going to put aside for another card, because you're going to see how easy this is, and you're going to want to make lots of these cards. Now I'm going to just pick this up, and I'm just going to trim my stems right there, and there we go. That's the first part of our card. Isn't that just gorgeous? We're going to grab some of this wonderful linen thread, and I've got two pieces here, but I want this piece here, and I'm going to wrap this around, I think about 3 times, because I want a nice 1, 2, 3, 4. So I want kind of a nice grouping of linen here. And we're just going to kind of put that right there. And we're going to tie it off into a nice bow. It could be a knot, it doesn't have to be a bow. But you can see that came nicely. I'm just going to kind of twist this a little bit and pull my bow in so I can kind of get a nice tight bow. There we go. And then I'm going to go ahead and just kind of clip these ends right here. Okay, so now we have, and we can align it just kind of using our gingham print. It aligns nicely with our gingham print. So here is where we're going to put our sentiment right there. And I'm going to pop this up on dimensionals. Linen thread. And I want to put that where it can kind of lock that linen thread in right there. So I've kind of nailed that linen thread down. And there we go. So now when I flip this over, I'm going to put this on my card. I'm going to kind of line it up to how I want it centered. And then I'm going to hold the bottom and I'm going to bend, because that's where I'm going to bend my easel card. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab a pencil. I'm just going to put a line right there, because that is where I want to put my my tear tape. But before I do that, I'm going to need another piece of yellow gingham. Okay, this is for the inside, and we're going to cut this at 5 1/4 by 4. And this is going to go on the inside of our card. And again, I like tear tape. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to put a couple of strips of tear tape. Okay, so this is going to go right here, centered. And here is where my my easel card. So I want to now put this, "You're amazing and that's a fact." We're going to go ahead and we're going to put this on our on the bottom card. And I'm just going to use a piece of tear tape to adhere that nicely in the middle of this oval. Look how nice that fits. And then I'm going to come over here and we're going to grab a couple of little dots here. We're going to put one there. These are some really nice little Calypso coral dots. There we go. I'll flip it over and I'm going to get some dimension. So we're going to want this right about there, okay? And we want this to hold on our card well. And we're going to put that right there. I'm going to flip this over. I have my piece, my little pencil line, and I'm going to put my tear tape from edge to edge, all the way across that as far as I can, over across into my gingham. I'm going to do the same thing right there. I'm going to roll it down the seam of my paper. And you know, I think just for good measure, I forgot to basically put a piece right back here. And let's get this. I should have put a piece right there. Close that up. There we go. So that's closed up, remember? So now I can go ahead and run a piece right there. And I've got those corners nicely. Okay, so now I have my card. I'm just going to flip this over. And I'm going to just line that up nicely with the top and the sides. And there we go. Voila. There we go. How about that? And there's our easel card. Wasn't that easy? And you can just open it up and you can write something in here. And then we're going to take an envelope, and here all I did to decorate my envelope is I just took some of my old olive and that wonderful little leaf image, and there you go. So to the woman who does it all with grace and wisdom, you're amazing, and that's a fact. Isn't that a nice card to send someone for Mother's Day? A friend, an aunt, favorite aunt. I just love that. So here I've done the same card. I've made it a sympathy card, and here is just a nice mom card. So I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and that you will take advantage of the offer and celebrations for the Lasting Lily stamp set and the framelits that come with it, available 1 March. Those things sell out fast, so you're going to have to get on it if you're interested in them, because you can see that you have some really nice options with putting together some nice cards. This is Kat Chancellor with Stamp Art Connection. Please like my video, go to my blog, sign up for my newsletter, and if you make a $50 order, you will get my my little sheet here, my PDF sheet of fancy folds for card making. I'm still putting it together as I'm putting cards, fancy folds together. But if you sign up, you'll get the first edition, and then I will continue to send it to you because I appreciate your business. So, Cat Chancellor, Stamp Art Connection, happy stamping and God bless.